Reduce, reuse, recycle. A phrase that has been burned into the minds of young and old alike.
Since the first widespread recycling movement in the 1970s, the initiative has come a long way, with billions of people recycling worldwide. Most people consider recycling to be their main contribution to the environment, and because of the positive media presence, they have no reason to believe otherwise.
However, there is a side to recycling, a side that is hardly present in the media, a side in which recycling might be doing more harm than good. See, back when the recycling program was first being introduced, it was an honest system,
with the hopes of helping the environment by dealing with waste, saving energy, and reusing materials so raw materials wouldn't need to be harvested. It was a financially viable system too, as the cost of collecting the recycling was roughly equal to the amount earned when it was sold back to the manufacturers.
I remember when recycling first was introduced into Winnipeg and to the system, and I was quite excited to be able to sort my supplies that I was going to be disposing of, and maybe that they would find a good home in a recycling program.
While some were quite keen on the recycling model and fully embraced the concept, participation in the program was initially subpar. This is because it was widely unknown, but also because of the dual stream system, in which people were required to sort the recyclables into categories such as glass, plastic, metal, and paper. Over time, the dual stream system has been terminated with the introduction of the more convenient single stream system, in which all materials can be put into the same bin. The process has become more efficient too, with large amounts of recyclables being brought into material recovery facilities, having technology separate the materials and then having the machines turn them into bales.
Unfortunately, this recycling system suffers from many downfalls, which begs the question:
is the recycling model in need of fixing?
It's not so much as fixed as probably replaced. You're not really going to want to recycle things. It makes sense to reuse things over and over again, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to take something and try to return it back to its original state.
Despite there being those who believe that recycling is a broken system, the majority still believes in the message of recycling and feels the system is working.
I have concerns about global warming and the environment, and I think if used properly, the system we have could be sustainable.
As can be seen, the debate over whether or not recycling should be continued is one of which sides have been created between those who are pro and anti-recycling. Though with recent events, it's clear that we're in need of change. In 1992, developed countries began sending their recyclable waste to China and other underdeveloped Asian countries.
Here, the cost of labor was rather cheap, and materials that couldn't be processed in places like Canada, the United States, and some parts of Europe could be processed rather inexpensively.
Since 1992, China grew to become the dominant recycler, processing roughly half the world's waste. Some Canadian municipalities exported up to 80% of their recyclables to China, while the EU admittedly sent 85% of their plastics to China.
Quite recently, though, the industry in general has been in great turmoil, and recycling industries everywhere are falling apart.
On January 1st of 2018, China enacted the National Sword Policy, greatly decreasing the amount of recyclables they accept. The police has banned 24 types of solid waste, including recyclable materials such as textiles, mixed paper shipments, and a low-grade PET used in plastic bottles. It also imposed a strict contamination rate of 0.5%, which a bale of recyclables must not exceed. This is problematic, as the typical recycling facility currently has an average contamination rate of 2 to 15%. For context, a single styrofoam cup mixed in with 200 plastic bottles would be reaching the maximum contamination rate.
With the implementation of these bans, it's estimated that by around 2030, 111 million metric tons of plastic alone is going to be displaced. Despite this, we continue to take in more recycling without any way to process it. Unfortunately, the older model, in which the cost of collecting was about equal to the price of selling these materials, no longer exists in the modern world.
The bans have created a surplus of recycling waiting to be processed, and because of the supply and demand nature of the business, earnings have diminished.
As many areas are struggling to sell their materials, the manufacturer is able to get them for even lower and lower prices.
In Ontario, it cost $347 million to collect the recyclables, and only $95 million was made from the sales. The money lost in the process is paid for by the municipality and the industry, making recycling less and less economically viable. The misuse of recycling bins only furthers the cost, as for each item that cannot be recycled, it must be collected and go through the recycling process. In a sense, that makes the next item cost twice as much to recycle. This amount adds up quickly, as a quarter of everything placed in recycling bins cannot be processed.
As it stands right now, more stuff is taken in and it costs more in order to recycle it than it does just to simply make something new from something else.
We've even reached a point where the environmental benefits of recycling have come under heavy questioning.
The processing of recyclables may in some cases release more greenhouse gases than if the item was sent to a landfill. This process is washing the recyclables before putting them in the bin, having trucks come pick them up, and then having them processed at the facilities all contribute to greenhouse gas emissions.
The production of many items at once is meant to save energy by using old materials rather than harvesting new raw materials.
However, for materials like plastic, of which 91% is not recycled globally, it seems the landfill may be a better option.
There is no environmental benefit from recycling anything because you're still using energy to do it, you're still using up other resources to do it, and so there is no real environmental benefit to recycling whatsoever, so therefore all it is an economic drain.
In its current state, recycling is not a viable solution to our waste problems.
The system has been exploited by manufacturers who now feel it's okay to create single-use products like aluminum cans or disposable yogurt containers. Consumers have also been brainwashed, as they now see recycling as an excuse to be more excessive or feel good about their larger ecological footprints. Politicians then feed off this belief and campaign on improved recycling, further endorsing this broken system. In order for things to change, people must stop relying on the magical blue box that turns their waste into new products, and rather focus on reducing consumption and not encouraging the reckless manufacturers.
While the government sits idly by, communities everywhere are struggling. Perhaps it's time to start listening to the opinion of those directly affected by these policies, rather than those who continue to endorse a dysfunctional system.
I would hope that maybe more money goes into the study of what's going to happen to those things. We shouldn't just blindly throw them in a bin and not give it another thought.
I think what we have to do is use the current model that we have properly so that we can execute that to its best ability.
It would be much better, again, if you were to burn the garbage and then use it for other energy production that way.
So I don't really have much knowledge about what happens now.
It's time to reduce, reuse, and rethink.